Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
To continue, now we're going to start a new canto 5. Canto 5, the creative impetus. Chapter 1, the activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. The last time we met Priyavrata was when he was doing austerities and he didn't want to get into family life. When Brahma came and convinced him, Narada was telling him to take sannyas. And then finally he agreed. And Swayambhu Manu was also there. So then Parikshit Maharaj was surprised because he wanted to renounce. Then they made him go back into family life. Then after that he gave up that and went back. So he was curious, how is that possible? How did he do that like that? So that's his story, Priyavrata. Because he followed Brahma's instruction, he got the blessings, and so he was able to go back to Godhead. That's one. Rajavacha Priyavrato Bhagavata Atma Rama Katam Muni Vihe Ramata Yanmuglaha Karma Bandha Parabhavaha. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, a great sage, why did King Priyavrata, who was a great self-realized devotee of the Lord, remain in household life, which is the root cause of the bondage of karma, fruitive activities, and which defeats the mission of human life? So he already knew the mission of human life. Remember, Narada Muni instructed him perfectly. But out of duty, he was asked to go back and perform his service. Because what happened, his brother Uttanapad has already left the kingdom and went and is doing some austerity somewhere. So therefore, if both of them went, then there's nobody to rule. So at the request of Swayambhu Manu and Lord Brahma, he accepted and he went back into his family life and to rule the world anyway. So, Jnanis get satisfied through knowledge, Karmi through fruitive activities. So here Priyavrata is called Bhagavata Atmaram. Means he becomes satisfied serving the Lord or doing devotional service. And you seldom find people are like that. So it's a rare position that Priyavrata held. But he was in that, from that context we can understand he wasn't a ordinary jiva in that sense. He was a Paramahamsa. He was already liberated, even though he went into family life. Next 2. Nanunam mukta sanganam Adrishanam Dvijarishabha Griheshwabi Neveshuyam Pumsam Bhavitum Arhasi. Devotees are certainly liberated persons, therefore, O greatest of the Brahmanas, they cannot possibly be absorbed in family affairs. So because he is always absorbed in the Lord, it's not that he is enjoying his senses like that. Out of duty, he took up that service in family life. And he was doing it as a service to please his superiors and the Supreme Lord. Alright. Otherwise, he cannot be a Mahabharata. Text 3. Mahatam kalu viprashe Uttama shloka padayo Chaya nirvrita chittanam Na kutumbe sprihamati. Elevated Mahatmas who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are fully satiated by the shade of those lotus feet. their consciousness cannot possibly become attached to family members. Right? So when they take shelter of lotus feet, so Prabhupada writes about Narottam Das song, Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Sushitala Yechayaya Jagat Judai. So one who takes shelter of Lord Nitya's Nanda's lotus feet, which is like millions of cooling moon. And from the blazing fire they get the ability to be relieved, and they are completely satisfied like that. So here is a Bhagavat person who is very advanced, so he has nothing to worry about family life already. Again, it's the same point. Therefore, his consciousness is not attached to family members. He's already happy, contented with the Lord, serving Krishna, because he has already achieved the higher taste. So this material life is not higher taste for him. So therefore, if he is going back, that means there is a good reason why he is doing. Text 4. Samsayoyam mahan brahman
Samsayoyam mahan brahman
Naragara sutadishu
Naragara sutadishu
Shaktasya yat siddhir abod
Shaktasya yat siddhir abhut
Krishne cha matir achyuta.
Krishne cha matirachyuta.
The king continued, O great Brahmana, this is my great doubt. How was it possible for a person like King Priyavrata, who was so attached to wife, children and home, to achieve the topmost infallible perfection in Krishna consciousness? Now this is Parikshit Maharaj asking about Priyavrata. So that's his question. But of course, when you are such an advanced person, it really doesn't make much difference for them, because whether they are serving Krishna directly or they are serving through their duty, they are always fixed in the lotus feet of Krishna.
So see, he appeared to be attached to wife, children.
Yeah,
external,
it appears like that, but it's not. So that's the reason why King Parikshit was asking. From Parikshit Maharaj's point of view, is because he went back, he must be attached to the family.
Okay.
That's his point. But actually, Sukadeva Goswami already explained it's not in that case. So the next one is a prose, so you don't have to chant. Shri Shuka Vacha
Shri Shuka Vacha
Vaddam Muktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Srimad Charanara Vinda Makaranda Rasa Aveshita Chetaso Bhagavata Paramahamsa Daita Katam Kinchit Antaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Padavimna Prayena Hinvanti. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, what you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose praise in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma are very pleasing to great devotees and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey on Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired. Right. So whatever Parikshit Maharaj said, he said you are right. Very nicely. So that means if you are at that stage, it's not possible for you to fall down actually. That's what he's saying. Maybe sometimes he says, sometimes some impediments. But in general, it is not like that. So they don't go back to materialistic life like that. So therefore he qualified that one who is absorbed, maybe sometimes, that's why he is qualifying it, sometimes like that. But he never gets away from that position of pure devotional practice. Right? So then Prabhupada writes, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. The first is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparadha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparadha, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparad is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. So we have to be very careful. Even if a very advanced devotee has problem, what to speak of us, right? Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether. But advancement may be checked for the time being. So that means we may have to go and suffer lifetime sometimes, then come back and then continue from that point. Thus, Vaishnava Aparada is one kind of impediment to devotion service. And then sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. So there's a Lord himself wants to. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. But by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. So this was the desire of the Lord. Okay. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Alright, so you cannot lose it in any circumstances. Right? You may be stopped or checked for time being. Right? So in his case, he didn't go back to Godhead, he was checked. Because the Lord also desired, and through Brahma and Swayambhu Muni, he had to take care of the duties of the world. Okay? So, Prabhupada also says, Shivatamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that the devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. So when you do pure devotional service, you are actually at the position of Shubhada. Okay? So this is one of the criteria. Automatically you are placed in the auspiciousness category. And in general we know, when devotees do service, they only take shelter of the pure devotees, acharyas, and the lotus feet of Krishna. They don't take shelter of material energy or material persons. No doubt about it. Even if there's impediments, they accept it, right? Like Brahma's prayer, Tattenu Kamposu. So they accept it, they're willing to accept the difficulties, but they'll never give up devotional service or anything to do with Krishna. They're always fixed in that. So therefore, it's very important to understand that practice of Krishna consciousness is so potent. We shouldn't take it for granted. That therefore, we should do it properly. So, even if you're having problems, Krishna tells Arjuna, right? Kunteya pratijani name bhakta pranashyati. I will protect you, don't worry. So, we have to first qualify, then Krishna will protect us. Of course, to come to that qualified position, yesantu antagata papam jananam punya karmanam tedvanta moha nirmukta bhajati gandadavata. So you must make sure you get rid of all the unwanted things in your life, in your heart. Then you can do with determination. Once all those things go away, Dirghavrata, you become very fixed. So that's actually secret actually. So whatever difficulties we have, it will be resolved by Krishna if we are sincere. Okay. Like 6. Again it's in prose. Jal kivavaha rajan saraja putra yagatvaha parama bhagavato narajasya karanopa Sivayan jasavagata paramartha sattvato brahma satrena vishikshyamano vani dala paripalanayamam nata paravara guna gunakanta vajanataya swapitra pamantrito bhagavati vasudeva evyam vajana samadhi yogena samavesita sakala karaka kriya kalapo Naivavyanandad yadyapi tat apyam natavyam tat adhikarana atmana anyasmat asatopi parabravam anvikshamanaha. Sometimes too long.
Mantra meeting.
Huh?
There's a Vedic mantra meeting.
Yeah. Translation. Shukadeva Goswami contributes. My dear king, Prince Priyavrata was a great devotee because he sought the lotus feet of Narada, his spiritual master, and thus achieved the highest perfection in transcendental knowledge. With advanced knowledge, he always engaged in discussing spiritual subjects and did not divert his attention to anything else. The prince's father then asked him to take charge of ruling the world. He tried to convince Priyavrata that this was his duty as indicated in the revealed scriptures. Prince Priyavrata, however, was continuously practicing Bhakti Yoga by constantly remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thus engaging all his senses in the service of the Lord. Therefore, although the order of his father could not be rejected, the prince did not welcome it. Thus he very conscientiously raised the question of whether he might be diverted from devotional service by accepting the responsibility of ruling over the world, which we read, remember? And he was assured nothing like that, don't worry. So he got the blessing that he will not lose his Krishna consciousness.
It was same as Brahma praying actually, right? It was same as Brahma.
Yeah,
praying.
Brahma also did that exactly. Yeah, he also wanted to make sure that he doesn't get covered. Also. And then there was another personality, Shukadeva Goswami also, told Krishna that he doesn't want to be bewildered by the material energy if he comes up. Right? So he wasn't, Priyavrata wasn't like someone in high school you go and meet and you tell him like that. No, he really knew the science of Krishna consciousness. And therefore he took shelter of Narada Muni very strictly. And that, like in most family home, right? You are going to college and then the devotee is preaching in the college preaching, and then you say, Mother, Father, I want to become a full-time devotee. So then the parents go crazy. So same thing, Priyavrata wanted to go full-time. And then Swayambhu Mana said, no, I want you to take care of the business, family business. So he didn't like that. So he was wanting to make sure that he will not lose the ability of remembering Krishna. Okay, so that was the main thing. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes in the second paragraph about Priyavrata, while thus serving the Lord, he deals externally with worldly affairs without being affected. For example, although he has no attraction for his children, he cares for them and educates them to become devotees. So this is a position of a liberated person. Okay. So you all sometimes ask, right, what to do. Well, you have to come to a liberated position.
Why can't I see God?
Huh?
Why can't I see God?
Yeah, why can't I see God? The whole idea is without being affected. Okay? And then he educates his children to become devotees. So that these are the things, his key things. Similarly, he speaks to his wife with affectionate words, but he's not attached to her. Both ways. Wife speaks to the husband with affectionate, but not attached to him. By rendering devotional service, a devotee acquires all the good qualities of the Supreme Lord. Now, Krishna had 16,000 wives, all of them very beautiful, and although he dealt with each of them as a beloved husband, he was not attracted or attached to any one of them. Externally, it may seem that he was more attached to Satyabhama, because she was always making the most noise. It's true, so therefore everyone says Satyabhama. But actually you can understand he wasn't really showing favoritism. It's not in the nature of the Lord in that way. So in the same way, although a devotee may enter family life and act very affectionately toward his wife and children, he is never attached to these activities. The affectionate nature is seeing them as a spiritual beings, entities who are dear to Krishna. So that is the real affection. Okay. So Priyavrata's position is exalted because he really respected Narada Muni as his spiritual master, and he served it fully, and so therefore he is given the blessing. And actually Narada Muni already gave him the blessings, and he was going to completely give up the kingdom. But as we know, there was no one else qualified to rule the world, the universe at that time. So therefore he was asked to come down to the material platform. Okay. Text 7. Ataha bhagavan adideva etasya guna visargasya Paribrahmananudhyana Vyavasita Sakala Jagat Abhipraya Atma Yodi Akila Nigama Nigadana Pariristita Svabhavanat Avatatara. Sri Sukadeva Goswami continued. The first created being and most powerful demigod in this universe is Lord Brahma, who is always responsible for developing universal affairs. Born directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he dedicates his activities to the welfare of the entire universe, for he knows the purpose of the universal creation. The supremely powerful Lord Brahma, accompanied by his associates and the personified Vedas, left his own abode in the higher planetary system and descended to the place of Prince Priyavrata's meditation. So it's like the most powerful person, actually one of the most powerful person, personally came to tell Priyavrata, please go and do your duty. So it's not, we should also understand Priyavrata was also not an ordinary person. Because Brahma is very hard to also get his audience. He would not bother with all these things, right? So, but you can see he was Atma Yoni. He's born from the lotus navel of the Supreme Lord. So he is a special being also. And he's also called Bhagavan Brahma, because he understands the Lord's mind. So whenever the demigods have problem, they go to Brahma. And Brahma would meditate on the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord would speak through the heart of Brahma. Then he conveys to the other devotees, demigods. So this is the position of Lord Brahma. We shouldn't think, oh, Brahma is like that. No, who are we, compared to Lord Brahma? Okay. So in the second paragraph, Prabhupada says, because ruling over this universe is a great responsibility, Brahma must force many Manus in different ages to take charge of universal affairs. Okay. Under each Manu there are different kings who also execute the purpose of Lord Brahma. I mean, this whole universe is so huge, so Brahma can't personally go and take care of all this. So that's why the Manus, and then from them their children who are Kshatriyas, kings, they are given the universal affairs, administration, like that. Yeah. It is understood from previous explanations that the father of Dhruva Maharaj, King Uttanapada, ruled over the universe because his elder brother Priyavrata practiced austerity from the very beginning of his life. Thus, up to the point of Prachetas, the kings of the universe were all descendants of Uttanapada Maharaj. Since there were no suitable kings after the Prachetas, Swayambhuva Manu went to the Gandhamadana hill to bring back his eldest son Priyavrata, who was meditating there. Swayambhuva Manu requested Priyavrata to rule over the universe.
But the son was there, right? Pracheta's son was there, right?
Yeah, but Daksha wasn't qualified.
Oh.
Right? He is like a Prajapati.
Okay.
He was good for karma kanda activities.
Okay.
Remember, he is only wanting to do that kind of activity. And even when he approaches Vishnu later on in 6th canto, you see, he doesn't ask for pure devotional service. He just wants to be able to procreate. So he wasn't qualified to be a king. Even though he was born as son of a Kshatriya. So
So is it because that he has done offenses to Lord Shiva? His
You can say that, I do
devotional
not know.
checked.
I do not know.
So what is his position? Prajapati
Prajapati.
He's not like a king. Huh?
No. In his case, he wasn't a qualified, suitable king. He may be a minor king.
So he didn't even claim to rule actually, he didn't even want to rule.
No, he may be a minor king, not the
Whole universe.
Okay.
ruling the universe.
Maybe one planet.
That level, he is not. You know, like sometimes you may all go to the same college and get qualified, but one of you becomes the president of the United States, right? They have that qualification. Everyone goes to law degree and same thing, but someone becomes Supreme Court judge because of the qualification. But everyone got law degree like that. So same thing with the Daksha. Yeah. So the difference is Priyavata is most qualified. Yeah, like that. So when his father Swayambhu Manu asked him, he said, "No, I don't want these difficulties anymore. I don't want to get into family life." Yeah. So then as soon as he spoke like that, Brahma descended. Because he knew there was going to be some problem in the ruling. So he came. And he came with so many other sages, Marichi, Atreya, Vashishta, all, just to convince Priyavata.
It's like in office when you lose some very valuable person, it's so difficult for managers to fill their role.
Place, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Let's say, Sa tatra tatra gaganadala udupati jiva vimana valivir anupatam amara parivriddha avipujyamana pati pati chavarudashaha siddha gandharva sadhya charana munikare upagiyamana gandhamana droni avavasayan upasasarpa. Translation: as Lord Brahma descended on his carrier, the great swan, all the residents of the planets named Siddhaloka, Gandharva Loka, Sadhya Loka and Charana Loka, as well as great sages and demigods flying in their different airplanes, assembled within the canopy of the sky to receive Lord Brahma and worship him. As he received respect and adoration from the residents of the various planets, Lord Brahma appeared just like the full moon surrounded by illuminating stars. Lord Brahma's great swan then arrived at the border of Gandhamadana hill and approached Prince Priyavrata, who was sitting there.
So which planet is this, Prabhu?
Gandhamadana hill.
Yeah.
It's like probably one of...
Brahmaloka?
It's a planet full of mountains.
The same
No, it's not Brahmaloka.
The same one mentioned in Ramayana also. Gandhamadana.
Gandhamana mountain is.
Which planet is that mountain in the Gandhamadana hill?
Yeah,
Which
I don't
planet
know
is it?
the name of the planet.
And they say it is
Hill.
a hill, right?
Huh?
Is it a planet or a hill?
It's a planet full of hills, like mountainous.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the mountain is Gandhamadana
Mm-hmm.
hill. They say hill, but it's a big mountain. Prabhupada writes there in the purport also, there is a planet covered mostly by great mountains, one of which is Gandhamadana hill. So then the three big persons were there, Priyavrata, Narada, Swayambhu. They were all sitting on the hill, trying to convince Priyavrata. Just imagine sometimes your guru will call you and then talk to you and say you have to do this, then you're like, no. Then he'll bring another person and then talk, right? So it's like that. Then finally, it's like, your temple president will ask you, then your other friends will ask you, then finally they'll say, call your guru on the phone. Then your guru will say, do it. Oh, okay. It happens, we have seen it also. So here all these personalities, so many personalities came because of Brahma. So he also has his own followers who worship him also, like that. Text 9. Tatra havayinam devarishi hamsa jnanena pitaram bhagavantam hiranya garbham upalabhamana sahasaivattayan hanena sahaspita putravyam avahitanjalir upataste. Lord Brahma, the father of Narada Muni, is the supreme person within this universe. As soon as Narada saw the great swan, he could understand that Lord Brahma had arrived. Therefore, he immediately stood up along with Swayambhu, Manu, and his son Priyavrata, whom Narada was instructing. Then they folded their hands and began to worship Lord Brahma with great respect. Okay. So his guru is Brahma. So when his Param Guru came, right, they all stood up.
Father also, right?
Father also. But they have spiritual connection, not materially we think. Text 10. Bhagavan api bharata tat upanitarhanaha sukta vakena titaram udita guna gunavatara sujaya priyavratam adi purushastam tadaya hasavaloka iti hovacha. My dear King Parikshit, because Lord Brahma had finally descended from Satyaloka to Bhuloka. Let's see.
Yes.
So this is in the planetary region of Bhuloka, but then there's planets within Bhuloka. Narada Muni, Prince Priyavrata and Swayambhu Manu came forward to offer him objects of worship and to praise him in highly qualified language according to Vedic etiquette. That means maybe they did some arati or something. At that time, Lord Brahma, the original person of this universe, felt compassion for Priyavrata and looking upon him with a smiling face spoke to him as follows.
Felt compassion for him.
Yeah.
He's already self-realized.
Yeah. Because he had to tell him to take family life.
Even sorry.
But he's a pure devotee, so when he gives such instruction, then it will be perfect. So by the mercy of Brahma, Priyavrata could accept a household wife. So Prabhupada writes in the second, Priyavrata was a grandson of Lord Brahma. And as joking competition sometimes takes place between grandson and grandfather, in this case also, Priyavrata was determined to remain in meditation, whereas Brahma was determined that he ruled the universe. Thus, Lord Brahma's affectionate smile and glance meant, my dear Priyavrata, you have decided not to accept household life, but I have decided to convince you that you must accept it. Actually, Brahma had come to praise Priyavrata for his high standard of renunciation, austerity, penance and devotion, so that he would not be deviated from devotional service, even though he would accept household life. So that's the reason he came to tell him, don't worry. Text 11. Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Godatate Danvitam Bravimi Masu Yitum Devam Arhasi Aprameyam
Masu Yitum Devam Arhasi Aprameyam
Vayam Bhavaste Tata Esha Maharishi
Vayam Bhavaste Tataesha Maharshi
Vahama Sarve Vivashaya Shritastam
Vahama Sarve Vyasaya Shristam.
Brahma, the supreme person within this universe, said, my dear Priyavrata, kindly hear attentively what I shall say to you. Do not be jealous of the Supreme Lord who is beyond our experimental measurements. All of us, including Lord Shiva, your father, and the great sage Maharishi Narada, must carry out the order of the Supreme. We cannot deviate from his order. So, There is an order also that the Lord wants them to Priyavrata to rule and also act as the example. Yeah, you can say like that. But the idea is there's already the Lord wants him to do it also, and Brahma is just kind of coming to establish that. That's what he's saying.
So Prabhu, again Lord Brahma is called as Bhagavan Vacha, right?
Yes. Nothing wrong with that because he's a Shaktivesh. Yeah, so in that sense he can be addressed as Bhagavan. He is also representing the Lord. And another case is he is also a pure devotee. So one who's pure devotee is as good as Bhagavan.
So I think in fourth cat, the last verse
Yes.
is related with
Yes.
Narada was called as
Bhagavan Narada. So basically the point is even the great Mahajans cannot disobey Lord's instructions. They can't. So in that way, like Guru Parampara, he's trying to tell Priyavrata that he also has to take responsibility and not go against the instructions of the superiors, because they are all authorities, right? Swayambhu Manu is a Mahajan, Narada Muni is a Mahajan, but Narada Muni is giving the other instruction. Then Lord Shiva is also, and he himself also. So they all are saying you go to 3 out of 1, you can say, telling him to go to.
So but then why Narada Muni also knows Lord's desire? Why he had to tell?
No, sometimes the Lord can reveal to some devotee and not to all devotees. So Narada Muni is just doing his duty of enhancing their devotion to the Supreme Lord. That's his job. But at the same time, Priyavrata is so willing to give up everything. And the situation in the universe at that moment is they need Priyavrata's ruling abilities. If there was another person, they wouldn't bother with Priyavrata. So, and I think this pastime is enacted to show us that sometimes we may have to give up what we want to do to follow the authorities. Okay? Because by following the authorities, we are pleasing the Lord also, not just doing renunciation. That's what it is.
Protected also.
And you are protected, because the authorities are sanctioning you. And even if you make mistake, it's the authorities' problem, not your problem. Alright, so in the, let's see, second paragraph? When Lord Brahma went to induce Priyavrata to accept the responsibility for ruling the universe, he did not go whimsically. He was following the dictations of the Supreme Lord. So Brahma wasn't doing it just because he had nothing else to do. He was doing it because the Lord wanted him to go and stop Priyavrata. Indeed, Brahma and other genuine authorities never do anything without his permission.
So they checked with the Lord first.
Yeah, the Lord reveals in the heart of Brahma that he has to go and stop this situation. So that's what Srila Prabhupada says. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart. Okay, so that means he dictated the information to Brahma. And so he understood that he has to make sure Priyavrata does the right thing. So in the next paragraph, Prabhupada says, Lord Brahma therefore had not come to Priyavrata by his own whims. Rather, it is understood that he had been ordered to persuade Priyavrata by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose activities cannot be understood by material senses and is therefore described to him as aprameya. Right. So he says you have to hear the words of the Supreme Lord without envy. Means you have to listen. If you don't listen, you are envious.
Submissive.
Yeah. So then Prabhupada explains about this whole situation, why one is induced to perform certain acts despite his desire to do something else is indicated here. One cannot disobey the orders of the Supreme Lord, even if one is as powerful as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Manu, or the sage Narada. Okay, so they all have to listen. So therefore he is telling Prabhupada, even we have to listen. So you are no exception. We are not forcing you. We are telling you why you also have to listen. Okay? And Prabhupada says, Brahma said that so that Priyavrata doesn't look at him as an enemy. Yeah, why are you giving me the wrong instruction? You're asking me to get married and means you're wanting me to go to hell like that. So he's saying, no, I'm here because this is the Lord's desire. Text 12. Natasya kaschit tapasa vidyayava
Natasya kaschit tapasa vidyaya
na yoga vijena manasi sayava
na yoga vidyena manishaya
naivarta dharmai parata svatova
naivarta dharmai pravata svatova
kritam vihantun tanubrid
kritam vihantum tanubhya.
One cannot avoid the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not by the strength of severe austerities, an exalted Vedic education, or the power of mystic yoga, physical prowess, or intellectual activities. Nor can one use his power of religion, his material opulence, or any other means, either by himself or with the help of others, to defy the orders of the Supreme Lord. That is not possible for any living being, from Brahma down to the end. So he is making it clear that, when the Lord says jump, everybody will jump. Okay?
But we misuse this free will and we are not actually obeying that.
Yeah, we are not. That's why we are suffering. But in reality, we are still obeying his order, material nature. Whatever we do, we are forced to do something. In a sense, we are following in a different way. And the consequence is suffering. But we cannot do anything anyway. Right? On our own, we have no free will. That's the point. So we have to order the Lord to get some freedom. Real freedom is to serve Krishna. Then you don't suffer. Yeah, so the point he's saying is sometimes people don't want to do so, they go and do a lot of austerities to get some potency. Just like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, all of them, they want to go against Vishnu, Narayana. But in the end, useless. They all got chopped down. Nobody can go against the Supreme. It's not impossible. So Prabhupada also mentions that Mama Maya Duratyaya. It's impossible to surpass the control of material nature. Why? Because the Supreme Lord is behind it. Maya Dikchena Prakriti Suyati. So it's under his supervision. So therefore no one can go against the order of the Lord. If you're in the material world, you have to follow one rule. Even in spiritual world there is some rule, but it's out of love. The other one is forced, one is love. That's it. No other in-betweens. Okay. So we can do whatever experiment we want or whatever, but it's all useless. Okay. Alright, so then Brahma says, he also says Mani Shaya, by intelligence. So in that paragraph, Prabhupada says, whom to accept would be a puzzle for Priyavrata, because both Lord Brahma and Narada Muni are authorities. Under the circumstances, the word Mani Shaya is very appropriate, for it indicates that since both Narada Muni and Lord Brahma are authorities to give instruction, Priyavrata should neglect neither of them, but should use his intelligence to follow the advice of both. Not easy.
It's a test.
Yeah, it's a test. Using everything in the service of Krishna. That is what Brahma wants him to do, actually. Okay. Next 13. Bhavaya nashaya cha karma kartum Shokaya mohaya sada bhayaya Sukaya dukhaya cha deha yogam
Sukhaya dukkha cha deha yoga
Avyakta distam janatanga datte
avyakta dishtam janatam gadate.
My dear Priyavrata, by the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all living entities accept different types of bodies for birth and death, activity, lamentation, illusion, fear of future dangers, and happiness and distress. So it is the Lord's order, we have to go through that, right? The Paramatma is permitting and making us do something and forgetting and remembering like that. So we can't think that we are controlling. In fact, we don't do anything. The material nature is the one who's acting.
Yeah.
Right? Prakriti, Kriyamani,
Gune karma sarasa.
so we can't do. Due to false ego, we think we are doing. But we are actually only desiring. And the desire is enacted externally by the material energy and the demigods. Like that. Yeah. So, therefore, his point is very correct. We are all, due to our previous karma and so on, under the direction of the Lord, the material energy is giving us different body. And that's how it is. Some are living long, some are living short. But that's how it is. But if we surrender to the Supreme Lord, then we get out of this entanglement or life. Text 14. Yatva chitantyam gunakarma dhamadi Sudustarai vatsavayam suyochitaha Sarve vahamo balimishvaraya Sotana siva vipade chatuspada My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunctions to divisions of varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of varnashram dharma like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on the ropes knotted to their noses. You know, the bull is very hard to control.
Yeah.
But the most tender portion is the skin between the two nostrils. So what they do is they make a hole and they put a ring. So just by pulling, the bull will just fall off. Because it's so sensitive. So that is how the material nature forces us according to our nature. We'll do some stupid thing. So he's saying, so you know, we're all bound by this thing. We cannot change it according to a whimsical reason. So therefore, he's saying you have to carry out your duty in the Varna and Ashram. How?
Like a bull.
Yeah, like a bull. Yeah. So, you know, the examples are very appropriate. Huh? So therefore, even Priyavrata understood exactly what you are forced to do according to your nature. Remember Krishna tells Arjuna that. Same thing. Nothing different. So according to Varna and Ashram, you have to follow whether you are a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, the duties. So here he is a Kshatriya and he has to rule. So that's because there's no one qualified.
But we also see that it is not Yama karma but it's Guna karma.
It's
But
guna.
according to his Guna, he is more towards goodness, not towards.
Not necessarily.
Even though
He is
born
a
in
king.
Kshatriya.
He has quality to rule.
He's trying to transcend.
Yes.
Trying to transcend.
Yeah, he is qualified to transcend. It's a pure devotee who's a Kshatriya. But a Vaishnava is actually qualified to do anything.
Any of the four ones.
He can be as a Brahmana, he can also do a Shudra job, anything. That's a Vaishnava. Okay. But he's saying according to the Varna and Ashram, he should be doing this. Because otherwise he's not setting
Good example.
good example also. Remember Arjuna wanted to go, same thing. Yeah. Next 15. Ishadishvishtam hi avarund maheyanga
Isha Bhishtam He Avarunda Mahenga
Dukam sukam va gunakarma sangha
Dukam Sukam Va Gunakarma Sangha
Astaya tattad yat ayuktanata
Staya Tattad Yadayagantanadas
Chakshushmatanda iva niyamanaha.
Chakshusmatam Dhayivaniyamana.
My dear Priyavrata, according to our association with different modes of material nature, the Supreme Personality of Godhead gives us our specific bodies and the happiness and distress we achieve. One must therefore remain situated as he is and be conducted by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, exactly as a blind man is led by a person who has eyes with which to see. It's interesting because everybody thinks they know what they are doing in life, right? And then actually they don't know what the goal of life is and so on. So really they need someone to guide them. Even when in the battle of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was perplexed, bewildered. So he said, I don't know what to do. So he needs a guide, and the guide was Krishna. So similarly here also, he is saying, according to that he should remain in his position and follow the Varna and Ashram, and because that's how the Lord has set up. So don't go against it. It's kind of interesting. Of course, when you have that, like Prabhupada previous what purpose he said, right? When you become self-realized, you can just possibly leave your family and so on. But this is a special case scenario. Yeah. So even though Priyavrata can go back, he is requested not to. And even if he refuses, let's say he goes against Brahma, then he won't get the blessing, and he won't be going back so soon. So it's kind of precarious.
There does.
Either way,
It's
we'll have
interesting,
suspicion.
Narada is instructing to leave everything there.
Yeah.
Brahma comes and says stay.
Yeah. So the Param Guru has more say. So they that's why you don't say Narada interject and say no. Yeah, they very respect. This is Vaishnava etiquette at play. So the other parties keep quiet, even if they disagree or agree. They say whatever Brahma says, we agree. Like that.
This kind of thing happened in ISKCON also during the early days of Prabhupada. Prabhupada used to tell his disciples, okay, you go start a temple over there, or you go and do this thing.
Right.
They were saying, no, I don't want to, but then Prabhupada said, no, you go. And
You
do.
go, yes. Then they had to do it, and they did it. By the instruction, if you follow, you are successful. So Priyavrata, if he follows Brahma, he will be successful.
In either case, he had to have some suspension in his devotion progress.
Yes. Some of what he wanted to do is very quick, and he said, no, slow down. Because you must understand the descendants of that Swambhu monks are very glorious. So if they all go back, then there's no one to guide, and good progeny also not around. So that is another reason why Brahma and the Lord didn't want that, Right? So very nicely explained. Text 16. Mukto pitavad vibriyat swadeham
Mukto Pitavad Vibriyati Svedam
arabdhamasnan abhimana sunyaha
Arabdhamasnam Abhimansunya
yatanubhuta pratiyata nidraha
Yatanubhutam Pratiyata Nidraha
kimtu anyadehaya gunana vrinte
Kimto Yadihaya Gunana Vritte.
Even if one is liberated, he nevertheless accepts the body he has received according to his past karma. Without misconceptions, however, he regards his enjoyment and suffering due to that karma the way an awakened person regards a dream he had while sleeping. He thus remains steadfast and never works to achieve another material body under the influence of the three modes of material nature. So one who is liberated accepts his karma, right? Tattena kampa. This is the way I am, it's okay, but I'll continue my devotional service. And they do not go against their karma. They accept it. He thus remains steadfast. Means he is still fixed in his devotional practices and he is not worried about material things.
Changes.
Okay? He is not worried about. And because he is fixed in his devotional service and continues pleasing the Supreme Lord, he is not creating another material world. Okay. So therefore Prabhupada gives the example like someone who is sleeping, as Brahma is saying. While sleeping one dreams many unreal things, but when he awakens he disregards them and makes progress in factual life. Similarly, a liberated person, one who has completely understood that he is not the body but a spirit soul, disregards past activities performed in ignorance and performs his present activities in such a way that they produce no reactions. Okay. What happened?
Mataji was asking, like Uttanapada descendants are there, right? They are ruling why we are choosing Priyavrata. Then you explained that Daksha was the last one who was not qualified.
Like 17. Bhayam pramattasya vaneshvapi syat
Vayam pramattasya vatensu
yata sa aste sahasat sapatnaha
yatastaste sasatyavatah
jitendriyashyatmarate budasya
yatendriyashyatmarate budasya
vihashrama kim nukarotya vadyam.
Rashrama kim karoti vajam.
Even if he goes from forest to forest, one who is not self-controlled must always fear material bondage because he is living with 6 co-wives, the mind and knowledge acquiring senses. Even householder life, however, cannot harm a self-satisfied, learned man who has conquered his senses. Right? If you are not self-realized, when there is sense gratification, then you already have 6 wives. Then you marry another person with another 6 wives. There's like 13 wives. It's too much.
Then you have to deal with 12.
Yeah.
6 plus.
7. 6 plus 7.
No, but that person also has a 6, right?
Yeah, so
So I'm
7.
saying 6.
Totally
13 wives.
13 wives.
Okay.
You have 6 and 6 and
I have 6 in that.
7, 7, 14. 6.
And the person.
6.
Oh yeah.
And the descendants.
Well, it's like that, right? It's like that. Yeah, so if your senses are not controlled, then you're always going to be cheated by your own senses or by someone else's senses. And therefore you can never be peaceful. And therefore if you are not peaceful, generally not peaceful means you are fearful. That's what it is.
Anxiety.
The anxiety is all based on fear. No? So that is material bondage. So we have to be very careful. Particularly when we are practicing and we want to go back to Godhead. If we're not practicing controlling senses, then it's going to cheat us. At the time when you want to control your senses, it will the mind will cheat you. Then you lose control and then you panic. Like that. So Prabhupada writes, because his uncontrolled, like 3 or 4 lines, because his uncontrolled mind and senses are going with him, for one who goes to the forest, he cannot achieve anything, even by giving up household life and staying in the forest, because by nature he lacked, right? Formerly, many mercantile men from the up country of India used to go to Bengal, and thus there is a familiar saying: if you go to Bengal, your fortune will go with you. Our first concern, therefore, should be to control the senses, and since the senses cannot be controlled,